Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Breeders' Cup Classic preview, the preview that we're certainly most excited to talk about, the preview that will feature probably the highest quality field, almost definitely the highest quality field, a very deep field, some very good talent, some very good stories, some very good narratives. It's a race that has got basically everything, 3-year-olds versus 4-year-olds, unbeaten records on the line. I'm going to throw out, I can't say that with certainty, but I'll be pretty sure. And yeah, let's get straight into it. Obviously, big question marks today over the favourite Sovereignty. We'll get onto that in a minute. But Daniel, can you talk us through the configuration and how that will affect the Classic? 10 furlongs here at Del Mar, starting at the beginning of the long straight. They've got quite a while to get in their preferred positions, right?
Yeah. Unlike some of the turf races where we talked about draw bias, this seems kind of irrelevant here. In a 14-horse classic, maybe you don't want to be drawn 14th, but this is 10. If we'll get to that later, as you said, if Sovereignty's not there, it's down to 9. They've got 2.5 furlongs to the bend. That's not really a relevant factor. What is relevant is the Del Mar 10 furlong circuit, which ends with this incredibly short straight, right? There's only one of the major US race courses, only one straight that's shorter than Del Mar in the whole country. It's Gulfstream. When they come around the final bend, you haven't got far to go to the finish line, and historically over this kind of distance at Del Mar, if you're not on or close to the lead at the final bend, you're in real trouble. So that's a massive factor in the mix.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously Sierra Leone sort of contradicts that stat from last year, but we see how desperate they are to have such a strong pace by the addition of contrary thinking to make sure
hang on. Yes and no. You're right. Sierra Leone is like this deep closer, and he is like a mile out from early in a race, and he closes. But by the time they came off the final bend last year, he was almost parallel with Fierceness. He did all his catch up at the end of the back straight and around the bend.
Okay.
Off a crazy fast pace. And that's one of the doubts about Sierra Leone this year, but more on that later.
Yeah. All right. Let's get straight into the horses and let's get straight into the one at the top of the betting who we heard today from trainer Bill Mott that he has had a fever overnight and therefore he is questionable. Well, he's not questionable. He's laid the foundations for being withdrawn to the race, which would be a massive shame because he is a massively talented horse. But if he were to run, is that him sort of ruled out as a betting proposition for you?
Oh, I see what you mean. So you're asking me if, despite the fever, they declare Sovereignty, and do I like him as a betting proposition? Well, I was pretty dubious about him at the 7-4 you can get with European bookmakers. I didn't want any part of him at 6-5, and that's before I heard about the spike fever. And no, I mean you'd hope, and everyone who wants to back him would hope he'd drift a huge amount, don't you? Basically, there's quite aside from the fever, there are just 3 doubts over Sovereignty, who is a star and on the verge of superstardom, and I don't deny he's potentially on the verge of superstardom, and he could just blow this field away. Three factors which you have to take in mind before deciding on what price you would back this healthy horse. One is that this is the first time he's faced his elders, right? He's been beating up on a what we suspect is a good 3-year-old division. We don't actually know it's a great 3-year-old division, and journalism's faced his elders and has been spanked by Fierceness. So questions to ask there. Second is he's shipping out to California, other side of the country. And third, no horse is a machine. He's got to turn up after his latest break and maybe maintain the level of form he's on, in which case he'll probably win. Not quite sure about that. If he regresses, I don't think he'll win. He could improve to superstardom. We don't know, but with the fever, let's see how this market goes.
Yeah, expecting a drift from the 7-4, which I think it was similar price in the UK this morning anyway, before the news broke. Next in the betting, we've got Fierceness and Sierra Leone at 5-1, but we'll talk about Fierceness first because we put him up, and also the morning line predicts that he will go off shorter. So, yeah, is he going to go one better than he did last year? And and win the Classic? Or
Of the first 5 in the betting, I think until we heard of Sovereignty's Fever, I think he's the only one in which his profile is you can't be absolutely sure he's going to turn up. He's raced 13 times and he's kind of run 5 duds, which is quite a high straight ride. At his best, he's brilliant. And the counterpoint to that, and what I suspect he will turn up, is he's shipped 3 times to California. He's run brilliantly every time. He's shipped twice to Del Mar. He blew journalism away last time by more or less the same distance that Sovereignty did in the Belmont, and much more, by the way, than Sovereignty did in the Kentucky Derby. And last year he was only second in the Classic, but a huge percentage of people who know their dirt racing will tell you that the best race run that day was not the winner, Sierra Leone's. It was Fierceness, who was in the teeth of an absolutely ferocious pace and had every right to fall out the back of the telly like the leader, Derma Sotogake, did, but he didn't. He clung on, tried to give Sierra Leone a race late on, but not beaten that far. It was a monster performance. If he runs his Del Mar race again, if Sovereignty falls out, he's the most likely winner. Even if Sovereignty's in, he's a massive threat. What they didn't want is to draw the 1 pole, one post, because that's what he drew last time. And when he exited the gates, he kind of made an attempt to jump over the rail. Plus, I don't think on the balance of his profile, Fierceness really wants to be drawn inside anyway. But he's maturer now, and on balance, I think he's likely to turn up, and he's a massive, massive threat.
Okay, so yeah, we'll immediately take from that he is preferred over last year's winner, Sierra Leone, at 5-1. But were he to drift on the day, could you make a case for him out to that sort of forecast morning line price?
Sorry, who are we talking now with the drift?
Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone. Well, Sierra Leone, this is a really interesting thing. Sierra Leone was much shorter on David Aragona's predicted morning line a week ago. He's changed his mind before the draw was done. He didn't have an option to push Fierceness out during that 1 hole again, which a lot of people don't like. But even before he saw the draw, he pushed Sierra Leone out because he's not getting the vibe from everything he's hearing that there's going to be money for Sierra Leone with Sovereignty, with Fierceness. 8-1 feels a long way to push him out. The question is to what stage the real betting market, people are putting money down at the price they know, the European 5-1, that's going to drift. He won it last year. He's got his rabbit, his pacemaker in Contrary Thinking. But I personally don't think he can get a better setup that he had last year. The pace they went to the 6 furlong mark, 4 furlong and 6 furlong mark, was not far off sprinters' pace. They went under 110 for 6 furlongs, sub 45 or close to 45 mark for 2 furlongs. That is absolutely going such a speed. So that was perfect for Sierra Leone. You could see, watch the picture of the overheads, where he's like 10, 12 lengths adrift after 3 furlongs. That was the way to win that race. I can't see him, unless they go that kind of pace again. And by the way, Contrary Thinking is no Derma Sotogake. And in any case, Fierceness had to go with Derma Sotogake. But I don't think he has to go with Contrary Thinking. Let him do his thing 2-3 lengths ahead. I don't think it'll set up as well. That said, Sierra Leone will come running. He will finish in the 4 for sure, but I'm not sure about him winning. 8s feels big, 5s feels a bit tight and short.
Okay, big call in this field, still finishing in the top 4, a guarantee. I wouldn't be so certain.
I think I'm right in saying that he's running. I don't know. I'm guessing eight Group 1s or whatever. He's never finished out of the 3 in a Group 1, or maybe he was once 4th. But yeah, Sierra Leone will come.
Very brave. Next time we'll move over to the star Japanese contender, Forever Young. He is currently best priced of 8-1. I know we definitely liked him at 12s. Do you still like him at 8s?
I've gone silent because there are two things screaming at me here. One is he started 3-1 last year, ran pretty well in third without ever looking was going to win, but he was right up with the pace. What you've got to take into account since then is two conflicting things. The Saudi Cup, which was one of the great races, global races, to my mind, of 2025. He and Romantic Warrior of Hong Kong throwing it down, half a furlong ahead of the next horses in the betting. That was a monster race. No one can quite equate that on a speed figure to what the top American horses do in their races, but it sounds like, from equivalency, that it was about as fast a race as been run this year over dirt, over 10 furlongs. Then he goes to the Dubai Cup and he's third as odds-on favourite. But what an excuse he has for that. He's taken into a tent for a urine sample, doesn't want to produce it, made to wait, gets mentally and physically distressed. And the groom basically tells Yahagi that this horse is gone. He races anyway, comes third. Yahagi writes a massive letter of complaint to the authorities about why was this horse made to get into this state before the big race. That is potentially a throwout. But even though his return sort of facile win in a Japanese nothing race, a bit like he did last year, was not bad, you don't quite know what mark that monstrous battle with Romantic Warrior left on him. I can't gauge Forever Young. I also think he wants a longer straight than the 1.5 mile short straight at Del Mar, because he's a grinding type, non-accelerating type. But on class, he's a massive factor. I don't know what to do with this horse, James.
Okay. Well, in that case, probably want to leave out, I'd suggest. Next up in the betting, we have got Mindframe at 10-1. Probably the biggest unknown in the race.
Absolutely bang on correct. Not unknown, I mean, in the sense that he's raced, 7, 8, 9 times, but he hasn't had a chance to show what he can do with the best over 10 furlongs this year. His figures this year are 1-1-1 dash hyphen whatever, lost the rider. That was that absolute crazy Kentucky Jockey Club Gold Cup or whatever it's called, when a horse called Phileas Fogg wiped out half the field, including Mindframe, who lost his rider, Irad Ortiz, who was last seen hanging off the back of White Barrio, as well as his own horse. It was absolutely crazy viewing. This horse was very, very sort of close to winning twice over this distance last year as a 3-year-old. And when all Veery and the stretch in the Belmont and another race behind Dornoch, can't remember the which, not the Travers, because that was Fierceness's. But basically, we still don't know what this potentially brilliant horse has to give, yet to prove it over this distance. As a wild win bet, I think he's a decent price. I wouldn't rely on him to run well. But yeah, I wouldn't put anyone off Mindframe at 10-1.
Okay, yeah. Mindframe definitely of interest. Then Journalism was next in the betting at 12s. Start of the season probably expected him to be a little shorter than this. We certainly did so because we put him up in an article at 12s. I think that was off the back of that stunning performance where he was slightly hampered and then managed to mow down the leader to win. And then we were all extremely taken by that. But Journalism at 12-1, is he a bit of a forgotten horse?
I would say it's definitely not forgotten horse. He's been in the public eye so much because he's, of all the 3-year-olds, he's the one that's turned up and danced every dance. We put him up after that Preakness win where he won from an impossible position with a great turn of foot. He was only hit, but prior to that, he'd only been beaten 1.5 lengths or whatever by Sovereignty in the Kentucky Derby. A lot of people, me included, subsequently proven wrong, by the way, thought he might turn that round with Sovereignty under different circumstances, but then he goes and gets thumped by twice that distance in the Belmont. Now, the only thing you can say there, though, is journalists have turned up to all 3 legs of the Triple Crown, which is squeezed into a very sort of short, sort of 5-week window. Sovereignty controversially skipped that middle leg and the chance for immortality of Triple Crown. So it's possible journalism below is best that day. He's then won again and then lost again. He lost to Fierceness and the Pacific Classic over this course and distance at the end of August. By that stage, he'd had, I don't know, six, 7 races over in the space of sort of 4 or 5 months. Was due a break. He's now had one back in his home court. He was a brilliant prospect, but he just seemed to plateau over the after the Preakness. The question is whether that plateauing was him to over racing with horses are fresh and he can come back big now. 12s is reasonable. I don't think he's impossible, but unlike when we put him up, he doesn't scream out a standout bet to me.
Yeah, feels unlikely journalism will fill the column inches on Sunday morning following the Classic. Next up, we've got a horse that I know you were very fond of at the beginning of the season, and that is Baeza. 16-1 best price in the UK, that is. Is that attractive to you?
On paper, Baeza is the third best of the 3-year-olds, and there are 3 in this race and a whole load of 4-year-olds. So on that sense, he doesn't appeal. But he's a very late foal. He's a Mave foal, and he ran brilliantly in the Derby to finish 3rd from the outside draw. He only drew in as a reserve. He then got very close to sovereignty in, I'm going to say the Jim Dandy, before they being well beaten. He's come back and finally won his Group 1 after missing in the Pennsylvania Derby. But again, that was against 3-year-olds, and he is now back in the big time. There is a case to be made that for the first time back in California in many months, he could run another big one and he could step forward. But my take as a sort of May 3-year-olds, if he's behind the curve as a 3-year-old, then they're all growing throughout their 3-year-old season. He may still be behind them now, reluctantly, and despite, by the way, thinking that his jockey Hector Berrios is about as good a jockey as you can get at Del Mar, and having a nice inside draw where he can tuck behind Fierceness. I think I'm going to leave him off my tickets, as the Americans say, but it does make me nervous. It does make me nervous.
Yeah, too much quality in this field, isn't there? There's next in the betting is Antiquarian at 20-1.
Yep, some people like this horse. He ran a very big buyer figure last time out in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He's improving, quite clearly an improving horse, and I want no part of him. You've got to make your stand somewhere, and for me, that Jockey Club Gold Cup win when he was in stall 8 and stall 7, a horse called Phileas Fogg wiped out basically the entire field of the good horses. He was given running behind a pace setter, a bit like a marathon runner who's got a pacemaker to run a really good figure. He did that. He is not as good as these. He's a complete throw out for me. Could have egg on my face about that, but I stand by it. Antiquarian, no.
Okay. Last one that we'll probably talk about in any detail is Nevada Beach, who is available at 25s.
You cannot completely discount this guy, can you? He's, without question, the least exposed in the field. He's only had 4 runs. Last time out, he beat Full Serrano, the Dirt Mile winner. Now, annoyingly, on Breeders' Cup night, because the scheduling for NBC, we won't know how Full Serrano has raced the Dirt Mile, which is going for defence, until the race 1 or 2 after this. So, yeah, we don't know quite what that means. But this is Bob Baffert's entrant. And it's kind of, in terms of whether you should consider a horse or not, this is a case of, well, therefore you have to consider him, don't you? Last year, he did nothing for the Classic. He ran a horse called Newgate, who I thought was much more exposed, far less potential. This one, Newgate, was 3rd, only touched, no, he was 4th. It was he had nosed out of 3rd in the wire by Forever Young, ran well beyond his odds. But Baffert will do his thing, and I'll leave it there. And this horse could run very, very well indeed. We don't know where his ceiling lies, and 25 to 1 each way is dangerous.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, that is the full field. Contrary thinking, as mentioned, you don't think he's got the ability to 41 shot last year. Or Dermot Sogataki, who ended up crumbling when trying to set a fast pace. So we will wrap things up there.
On a quick note on contrary thinking, David Aragona on his morning line has put this up at 50 to 1. I think traditionally in Breeders' Cups, you're only allowed to put up horses at 30 to 1 maximum. Maybe they don't want to insult entrants, I don't know. But I think David Aragona got dispensation to go to 50s for this fella, who's caused a lot of controversy. Some of the other connections, particularly Fierceness owner Mike Rapoli, has been rampantly aggressive in his view that this shouldn't be allowed to run, quoting some comment from the California Horse Racing Board that no horse not racing on its merits should be allowed to enter. With no intent to win. I think which Chad Brown has said, look, he's there to make the pace, but he'll go to the lead, and his jock's instructions, if you can win, do so. So that's an intent to win, isn't it?
Yeah. Highly unlikely, as you can tell by the bookies, 150 to 1, and you'd think they'd carry more scar tissue after Kirat's victory in the Sussex Stakes, but that is probably a very good result for them. Anyway, running through the field, so Sovereignty, major question marks about. Definitely recommend you to follow the news. We'll be tweeting stuff out as we hear it, so do follow our Twitter. Link will be in the description. Fierceness quite keen on the current UK prices of 5 to 1. Forever Young, there's a big question mark over. We don't know. Leone, were he to drift out closer to his morning line prices of 8s, would be interested in. Mindframe, we don't know what we're going to get with him. Journalism, admirable horse, but maybe a few too good. Baiza, if he finds the 3-year-olds too good, he's going to find the 4-year-olds probably too good. And then Antiquarian, not keen on. Nevada Beach, definitely some interest. So, yeah, could I just
tweak that? That's more or less a brilliant summary. Just tweak one thing. With Mindframe, don't know what we're going to get. No, we don't. But there's the potential for this horse to be good enough to win this race. This horse is potentially brilliant. We haven't quite seen it yet. So it's what I call a positive unknown. I really want to give positive unknown to Mindframe.
Yeah, we don't know what we'll get, but it probably could be good. So we'll be watching closely on Saturday for what is going to be a tremendous edition of the Classic. Fingers crossed Sovereignty gets there. Thank you all very much for watching, and come join us for the rest of our Breeders' Cup previews.
See ya.